So she is a precinct chair in the Tarrant County GOP, and she has, let's see here, done a lot of advocacy for education across the state, and she was telling me earlier about her advocacy in the Texas House, so I'm going to let you do any more introductions you want to do. So please welcome Ms. Hollie. This has got to be just so much.
So did everybody get a copy of my notes? I think I hit everybody. Okay, perfect. So my name's Hollie Plemons, and I am a stay-at-home mom of 3 boys. And in 2021, my school district made me mad, and they did not accept my child's medical exemption. He has 3 for not wearing a mask. He turned blue at school when he did wear a mask when Abbott enforced the mask mandate. The superintendent told me if I didn't like it that I could homeschool. Speak louder. It told me that if I didn't like it, I could homeschool. And I said, that's not how public school works. I'm going to sue you. And I hung up the phone, and my husband laughed. And so my district is Fort Worth ISD. It's almost $1 billion a year business. And he said, how are we going to sue $1 billion a year business? And I was like, God will work it out. He did. And so I did sue the school district. We kept masks off of the kids for the entire school year. We are the only district in the state of Texas that went against the mask mandate that Abbott had lifted, and then we sued, and we kept masks off the kids the entire year. And it was like a year for that lawsuit, and so I did win, and I was reimbursed all of my legal expenses. I made absolutely $0 off of that. People seem to think that I got a cash settlement, and it wasn't about that. I just wanted to say that I am the primary decider for what happens with my child, not the superintendent, and I proved that. I've continued to go to school board meetings for 4 years now. I have filed 16 grievances in Fort Worth ISD alone. They now have the only opt-in and out portal in the entire nation for surveys, data collection. It's a big deal to me. If you read my notes, you're gonna see some of that, but I'm pretty upset about the data collection that goes on without informed consent by the parents. That led me to helping other parents in other school districts. And then I started like, what's the problem here? Because we were having problems in our schools, and like the board wasn't listening. And what's the problem? Where can we fix this? And so I'm going to the school board, and that doesn't fix anything. And so when someone says there's a state board of education, and I'm like, all right, well then I'm going to go there. So I go to the state board, and I'm like, we don't have any power. The legislation has taken all of our power away. And I'm like, all right, where's the power to fix things that are going on in our schools? And they said, you got to go to the Pink Dome. So I did. And so I was the Pink Dome, the Capitol, where all the lawmakers are that they run on all the awesome things, but they can't know everything about everything. And there's very few underneath that Pink Dome that actually know anything about education. And unfortunately, when it comes to y'all like that. And unfortunately, when it comes to Republicans, we don't really have a whole much that actually know anything about education. And when I come in, I can vomit education on you people all day long. I can get really carried away with it, and they don't like to listen to me. So there's a big problem with that. So I am a GOP precinct chair. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Marxist, and I'm not a socialist. And those are currently things that I am being called on Twitter for my position against Abbott's school choice bill. So I am against SB2, that's Senate Bill 2, that is Brandon Creighton's Senate bill on school choice, ESAs, that did pass the Senate. I'm also against HB3, that's House Bill 3, that is Brad Buckley's bill, and it is left pending in committee at this very moment. I'm against ESAs, I'm against tax hikes, I'm against growing government, I'm against government handouts, and I'm against subsidies. I am for school choice. I have used all 10 options of school choice that we have here in Texas. And so you've got charter schools, you've got pod schools, you've got homeschool, you've got private school, you have PEG transfers, you have out-of-district transfers. I even drove 45 minutes each way to take my kids to a district outside of my district. Because when you sue your school district and you have a Marxist for a superintendent, they kind of retaliate against your kids. So I had to get out of there. And the superintendent, actually, on the 3rd day of school, I was at a very liberal school, and he said, get her out of there. They're going to kill her kid. The parents spit on me on the 1st day of school. God was making me for this during that time. I thought, like, what in the world's going on? I wasn't political. I didn't know the masks were political. And I found out when I sent a text message to all of my girlfriends asking them to help me with my lawsuit. And that's when I found out they were all Democrat voters. I didn't know. And they all unfriended me. My matron of honor blocked me on social media. And I was doing laundry. And I was like, okay. My husband came in and told me. And I was like, okay. And he's like, you're not upset? And I said, nope. And he said, why? And I said, I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong about this. I've read the studies on it. I am not wrong. And God's telling me what to do. I'm doing what He's telling me to do. And I prayed for new friends. I met Joe probably a week after that. And my very best friend was sitting next to me at my very first school board meeting that I went to, where I was shaking and sweating and had all kinds of people there super mad at me for everything that I had done. And so that's just kind of what led me to where I am in all of this and getting involved in education. So let me ask you guys, when it comes to school choice, how many are undecided? You're undecided?
I really don't care. I say fight amongst yourselves.
Okay. I'm going to make you care.
I don't have children. No.
I'm going to make you care. How many are for?
Are you talking about choice or the bill?
If I say school choice, if I'm giving you one of the surveys that they're toting that says, are parents the primary decision maker in their child's education, do you support school choice? So all of you would support that. Okay, Abbott school choice, how many would support that? So 0 for, and then 21 again. So this is going to be really easy, y'all. I don't have lots to sell. Y'all aren't going to be able to do me like you did Joe with all the hard questions. Y'all's questions were great though. So I support a tax exemption, and a tax exemption would be just like your homestead exemption, over 65, military exemption, and that is what parents and voters were sold was going to happen. It's your money. Me taking your money and stealing it out of your pocket doesn't make it my money. It's theft. And so that's what they're talking about, is taking the neighbor's money, neighbor's money, and all the way down. And so that is not what I think that most people, when they voted for this on the primary ballot, that's what they were thinking. Because they were told, it's your money. You get to decide, and parents will get to decide. What parent doesn't have the choice? You may not have the money. Like I said, sticking your hand in my pocket doesn't equal a choice to you. It's theft. And so what is school choice? So school choice is the 10 options that I did. And so I currently have one child in a charter school, and I have one child in a private school. For my child to go to that private school, I had to sell my car. I drive an almost 20-year-old car. I have the newest car in my family. We don't go on vacations. We don't go out to eat. We don't do a lot of stuff. I get my clothes off of Amazon, buy things used, and we sacrifice because I'm a conservative that believes in personal responsibility and accountability. And so I am taking on that expense of private school. We are at a low-cost private school. It's about $12,000 a year, and yes, that is low cost for Tarrant County. And so that is where Abbott is going. It's to all the low-cost tuition private schools. Why are you going to public school? It's to save the public school kids, right? That's what they said. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not. So that's why he's going to the low tuition private schools that are going to immediately, if they are accredited, and all of them are that he has gone to, they will immediately be able to get on to the ESA program and then pass that on to their parents. And one thing that has happened in other states at these schools that become the voucher vendor schools is, so FAFSA Day, we have that in our high schools. And that's where they have, everybody fill out to see if you can go to college and get government money for that. They're going to have FAFSA Day, but it's going to be ESA Day at our schools, and telling the parents, here, go ahead and sign up for this. Everybody's getting approved. Why is everybody in private schools going to get approved? Because we only have 25,000 open private school seats in the entire state of Texas. We have 6.4 million students. So when they say it's universal and everybody's going to get a coupon, you're going to get a coupon, and you're going to get a coupon, and you're going to get a coupon. No, you're not. There's only 25,000 open seats. And not all of those open seats are going to be accepting the ESA. So where I live, we have $30,000 a year, up to $35,000 a year private schools. They are not going to be accepting these coupons. They are going to raise the tuition. You're not going to get into those schools. So people in my area that think, I'm going to Trinity Valley, I'm going to Fort Worth Country Day. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're not going there. And if you also think that their $30,000 tuition or $20,000 tuition and the $10,000 coupon is suddenly going to make it affordable for you to go there, can you afford everything else? And then, so what Abbott's school choice is an ESA. So ESA stands for Education Savings Account. So what Abbott says is that you're going to apply, you're going to get accepted, you're going to have your golden ticket. And so then you're going to have funding that's going to have to go through the TEA where they're going to say, how much money does the state give on your child if they were to be in public school? And then 85% of that, and so this is pulling in the special needs kids, and so 85% of that is going to go into an ESA. Special needs kids can get up to $30,000 a year. If they're a $30,000 a year kid, they're probably costing taxpayers about $60 in the public schools because they have to have a paraprofessional with them all day long. If they have a feeding tube, there's no private school that's going to take a child with a feeding tube. There's not many private schools that are going to take a Down syndrome child or an autistic child unless they are an autistic school. There's one in Austin, it's $25,000. It does great things for kids with autism. Would a $10,000 coupon to those parents help them? Absolutely. But is it right? And so we're Republicans. We're supposed to be for small government. We're supposed to be for personal accountability and responsibility, no subsidies. And so if that's the problem of the special needs kids, well, then how about we get rid of the 8.5% cap on our SPED? And so that was done by Kent Grusendorf, and so he's a former legislator, and he was in Brad Buckley's seat in the House on the Public Education Committee. So he had a bill for SPED kids, and so only each school district can only have a maximum of 8.5% of their population of kids that are SPED. So if you go over that, they don't get as much funding for that. And that was done by, and you get dinged, yes, you get the ding. And so that was done by Kent Grusendorf. So Kent Grusendorf is currently running the group Liberty for the Kids. And Liberty for the Kids is going around and pushing vouchers. And they are the absolute meanest group to me on social media. I don't care, it's fine. They put me in pictures with Hillary Clinton and have a sign that says I'm with her. I just reshare it. And I'm like, look at these clowns. And I get more followers and it works out. So they're not really getting anywhere. So then how do the bills not match? So in our he was talking earlier about the proposition. So we had Proposition 11 and we had Proposition 9 in 2022. And they both said the same thing. Texas parents and guardians should have the right to select schools, whether public, private, for their children. Awesome. We already have that right. And then the last part of the proposition said, and the funding should follow the student. So the funding does not follow the student in any of these bills because it is funding a new lane of education for all of us to fund. So we already fund public schools, we fund charter schools. You know, we were talking about Robin Hood earlier. So if you look at the amount of Robin Hood recapture that comes in and you look at the amount that the state pays out on charters, they're almost the exact same. So that's really what recapture has become, is to fund those charter schools. And the charter schools are public-private partnerships, so that is public dollars going into private hands. Charter schools as a whole do not outperform our Texas public schools. One thing that people say about Texas schools is that they're horrible. So the NAEP scores is our MAP testing that all kids do, and that's the real apples to apples comparison. If we look at the STAR, I hate the STAR, but if we look at the STAR and we're comparing it to another state, they don't have that STAR. So it's not really a fair comparison, but the NAEP is, because all of them are doing the math. And so Texas is number 8 in the entire nation. So we're talking like...
You've done your homework. Thank you.
Like I said, I can talk education quite a bit. So in the state of Texas, they're saying that our public schools are so awful, right? Everybody's heard it. You're seeing all the articles. You're seeing everything about all the sex offenders. Guess what? They're in churches. They're in Boy Scouts. They're in private schools. They're everywhere that children are. They don't just say, hey, I'm a sex offender and I'm going to go straight into public schools. They're everywhere. And so right now, like, the media is just dogging on our public schools. Now, do our public schools have problems? You bet. You bet. I am not discounting any parent that's had a problem in their public school. I had problems in my public school. But I stood where I was and I fought. I got my kids out of the situation, and I still go to those school board meetings. I don't have kids in the district. They said that for about 3 or 4 months of me continuing to stay, and then they hushed up, and they decided to let that one go because they found out that I actually do care about all kids. Because if we don't care about all kids and we just care about our own, we're not doing anything great for our children. Because if everybody's kids are not educated, our children, and if we don't have children, they're the ones that are going to take care of us. They're the ones that are going to be checking us out at Target. They're the ones that are going to be doing our bank loans. They're the ones that are going to be mowing our grass, taking care of us in the hospitals. They're going to be our nurses, doctors, lawyers. And if they don't know how to read and write, and they have a whole bunch of psychobabble that is literally coming from the state, from the Republicans, that is going into our schools and having our teachers and our school officials be mental health professionals, and they're not. They are teachers, they are educators, and I want them to get to stay in their lane and do what they're best at. And so that is coming from the state. All of the mental health and the transformative social emotional learning, that's coming from our state, it's coming from our Republicans. And most people don't know that because they go to a school board meeting and they scream about the leftist ideology. I am in Fort Worth, totally leftist ideology, but when it came to the social emotional learning stuff that they were doing, it's the law. It's the law. They're the ones that put it in there, not the leftists, not the curriculum writers that the school board bought. It's the law, and they have to do it. So the other thing is the Republican Party of Texas has a platform. And so in our preamble, and I won't read you the whole thing, but anybody who wants to see my notes, you're welcome to come out and see them. It says, we understand that our economic success depends upon free market principles. So that's the preamble. Just a few sentences of what it means to be a Republican in Texas. Taking my money away from me to give to somebody else, to give them a different opportunity, to give them a choice. That's not working on the free market principles. Then we have 10 principles, we only have 10, of what it means to be a Republican in Texas. Number 5 is personal accountability and responsibility, and number 9 is a free enterprise society unencumbered by government interference or subsidies. And so this bill is totally a subsidy. They're even kind of calling it a subsidy, so not going against me on that. At the very bottom of my notes is all of the page and line numbers of where the strings are. So one thing that we had on our ballot was, not on our ballot, on plank number 84. I forgot to read that one. So school choice. We further support empowering all Texas families to choose from public, private, charter, or homeschool options for their children's education, and funding which shall follow the student with no strings attached. We oppose regulations on homeschooling or the curriculum of private or religious schools and believe a constitutional amendment should be adopted accordingly. In lieu of funding, citizens may use property tax exemptions. So, no strings attached. I did not get to go to convention this year, but my friends did, and I fought hard. And the committee was staffed with people that are, I call them voucher vultures, and so they were all over this committee, and they were fighting so hard to get that taken out of there. And my mom showed up, and they walked around, and they lobbied. There was 9,000 people at the last convention, and they lobbied, and so school choice is not even a priority. You know what it is? The border. The border. We want our border shut down. We want to stop funding illegals. Great. So here comes this bill. Guess who it funds? Illegals. They can get a coupon. And so this is something I've been saying since the last session, and the different elected officials said I was wrong, that it didn't fund illegals. And I'm like, yes, it did. Did you read the bill? And so now they are all coming around that, yes, I am correct. It does fund illegals. And they took it a step even further because, God love them, they don't know what they're doing. And they put another code in.
Speak up. You should speak up. You're too bashful.
I know. They do love me. I'm telling you though. And so they put another code in the bill, and so there's 25.001, which is which kids are allowed to be accepted. And so then we have a lawsuit that was done in the 80s called Tyler versus Doe. And so in our Constitution, it states that if an illegal comes here, they get everything that we are entitled to, or we deport them. We have two choices. So that's why we have to fund them coming to our public schools. And the public schools cannot say, you're not a citizen, you can't go here.
They can even cross the border to go to school and go back home.
They sure can. And so the in Tyler versus Doe, that is underneath 25.001. Well, what they did this time is they included 29.153. So that is the pre-K Texas Education Code. And it clearly states that the kids that are available for this pre-K program is if they don't speak English. I would probably say they're illegal if they don't speak English. And so if the Republican Party of Texas, which Joe said is the largest Republican Party in the world, and we're saying, fix our border, and Abbott and Patrick said, no, we're going to worry about less than 1% of kids on school choice, and you're going to get to fund more money to illegals. The people really need to speak up here, because the voucher vultures are well funded. Those of us that are fighting against this, we are not. And they come in and they get to take all of the elected officials to lunch, and they get to get them tickets, and they take them to dinner, and they do all of these things. But we, the people, hold all of the power. We've just forgotten how to use it. And so how I want you to use it is call your state rep. Make your name known to her or him. Then call the rest of them. On your drive to work, just have a list of all the numbers. It's easily available online. You guys got my phone number and email address at the top of my notes. If you ask me for it, I'll send it to you. Pick one every day. Call their office and let them know how you feel about it. If you are a Republican voter, tell them. If you are not a Republican voter, please don't tell them it's going to defund public education, because they just turn their ears off. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. They're not going to listen to it. So please take my advice on that. The person answering the phone doesn't get to vote. Be nice to them. And then if you are a constituent, they have something called CMS, Constituent Management System. And so your call will go in at how many times you've called and on particular issues, and how often you have been communicating with the reps. You can also email every single one of them. Right now, the emails are 9.9 against coming into the reps' offices, and they still look me in the face and say their constituents want it. And they're saying that because of the ballot language on the 2022 and 2024 proposition, which, by the way, it went down 8.26% from the 2022 to 2024, and only 10.86% of registered voters in the state of Texas voted. So get out and vote in your primary and walk and educate people on what this actually means. So really quickly, I'm going to go over the top 10 things for why I hate this bill. Bribes are allowed. They're making them legally allowed. The comptroller can accept bribes, and then the comptroller is who sets the rules for the program. And then also the CEAOs, that's Certified Educational Assistance Organization. So they are the 5 new vendors, up to 5, that are going to be created for this bill. So you call them and you say, I got a ticket. And they say, okay, great, here's all the places that you can use it. And then they hang up the phone. It's something that you can totally do online by putting in your zip code, seeing what's available. This generation of parents is not one that's like, oh, I don't know how to use the computer. Nonsense. They can totally do it without having to have these vendors, but this is a vendor bill, and this is who it's being created for. And so the CEAO can also accept bribes. They call them gifts, grants, and donations, but those are bribes. We also have to fund the advertisements as taxpayers, and it's going to come out of the $1 billion that is being set aside for this. So we have to fund it. So charter schools, they advertise, and they can use part of their budget for advertising their charter schools, but right now, and the taxpayers are paying for that. Public schools, they can advertise as well. But on this program right here, the taxpayers are going to have to be advertising throughout the entire state for the vendors, for the CEAOs that are going to be a private business And then they get to keep that money. For the educational providers, so homeschool curriculum, service providers, we have to fund their business. Like I said, illegals can get a coupon, and then this also covers pre-K 3 and 4-year-olds. So I'm against pre-K 3 and 4-year-old programs completely. Children need to be at home with their families, with their auntie, with their tia, with anybody. They do not need to be in school at 3 and 4 years old. There is no data that shows that they actually do better. There's only one study out of the state of Tennessee. It's called the Peabody Study, and it shows that there is lower outcomes for all children that do PK 3-4. And the state of Texas is full steam ahead with that program. My district is too. We now are covering 0 to 5-year-olds in my district. It's called daycare, but they call it school. Number 5 is there's an assessment. So how much is data worth? I talked earlier about the surveys that I was upset with. That was data collection. So how much is data on these kids, particularly our homeschool kids and our private school kids that they don't have data on and they're not already checking? How much is it worth? $10,000 coupon for homeschool, $2,000. That's how much it's worth. It's big business. Data is a huge business. There's only a 2-year protection on our rights, so a lot of the elected officials will say, this is the strongest protection of our private schools and our religious freedom. 2 years. Because a current government cannot bind a future government. So if the next session that comes along, if people want to open that up and change it, they can. If our state goes blue, then they can change it as well.
There's no way to codify it in the law?
It has to be a constitutional amendment. And so I would love to see this be a constitutional amendment because it would fail. There are way too many people in the state of Texas that are in public schools and that are loving public schools and are working in public schools, and so it would absolutely fail. So no, there is no way to say that they can never come into a private school and not change the curriculum. And if you look over at Arizona, there's currently a lawsuit going on things that were originally allowed and now they're not allowed. And so they must do these things, and parents are complaining because as soon as you let the government in the door, they don't just put their foot there and leave it. They start kicking. They start kicking that door open even more and more. And so this is a very dangerous door to open, and I would prefer that we don't open it. Number 6, there's a CCMR survey. So CCMR is College Career Military Readiness. And so Common Core, some of you may know what that is, it's illegal in the state of Texas. And so our legislators just said we're going to rebrand it and call it CCMR. And so we do have Common Core. Our TEKS are Common Core. If you want to know what's wrong with why our kids aren't learning so much, it's our freaking TEKS because they're Common Core. And so if we don't go back and fix that, and then the private schools start moving over to CCMR and homeschoolers start moving over to CCMR, it's not going to fix anything. And the biggest issue with this, if you put all of the Common Core aside, is this survey must be completed upon graduation. Who in here has the right to tell their child what to do once they turn 18 years old? The legal right. You can take their phone away. You can kick them out. You can tell them they can't go someplace. But you cannot legally make them do something. And so this bill is tricking parents that take the coupon into selling their child's liberty for life. The only language in the bill for a time frame is a minimum of 5 years for the survey. Does that mean 5 years after graduation? Does that mean 5 years of the program for them to put the survey together? It doesn't say. And it never says when the child doesn't have to continue taking this survey. They're selling liberty. This is so dangerous. And I have had representatives tell me that I am stretching in this. If you look at my notes, you can go online and you can read this section of the bill. It's almost 3 pages long. And the representative that told me that, he hadn't read it. But it was a stretch of what I was saying. It's not a stretch. There is an amendment that's coming to remove this because I'm 100% correct. It's not going to pass because they need this data. So just because an amendment's coming and I've proven my case, they all know that Abbott's not going to go for it if this is taken out. And if it's taken out this session, they're going to add it back in the next. This grows TEA, and it grows government TEA by 8 employees. TEA has done nothing but go like this in employees. and look at our scores, look at how much money we're spending. We as Republicans are calling on the elimination of the Department of Education. TEA is the Department of Education for the state of Texas. So a Democrat has filed a bill to audit and put TEA on sunset. This is a bill that is a Republican bill. It is conservative in principles, and it actually matches one of our planks. Republicans would not carry this bill for me and my friends, but a Democrat did. And so on Wednesday, there was a press conference for that. She is a radical Democrat. She loves to murder babies. She loves LGBTQ. But she hears us about the TEA. And so we're standing with her on this bill. It's a great bill. Andy Hopper filed one as well. But Andy Hopper wrote it probably with the same think tanks that wrote this bill. And Gina Hinojosa wrote the bill with us. And so it's a great bill. And then there's 46 total employees that will be grown in the government for a total cost of $29.3 million through 2030 in salaries alone. So how many kids does the government say in 5 years are going to leave our public schools? Does anybody want to guess? By 2030, how many public school kids do you think the government says, if you haven't already gotten the cheat sheets of my notes, how many do you think are going to be leaving public education to go into a private school? I'm going to ask you because you're the super. Yes.
100,000.
100,000? 98,000, you're correct. So how much is that 98,000 going to cost us? Huh? Well, we have 6.4 if you include homeschoolers and private schoolers. So that's going to cost us $11 billion to get 98,000 kids out of failing public schools. Is that really what taxpayers want to pay for? This is truly the government takeover of private education, because there's only going to be 122,500 children left in true private school in 5 years after this happens. And so I have that one child in private school. He's going to graduate this year, and then my baby can go there, and I can literally be done with government education so that they do not continue to retaliate against my kids. When you wage a war at the state in education, they take it out on your kids, same as the super does. So, not you, but mine did. Not you. But I live in Fort Worth, very different, and they did. So I need to protect that, and I've just been hanging on for next year, just August. I got to get there. I've done all 10 options. There's nobody that's done all 10 options. I've yet to meet one other parent, and when I say it to people, they're like, there's 10, and they didn't even know, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've done it all. And so I found what works, and now here comes the government to take what I'm taking care of on my own and wanting to ruin what I have. And when I sit before these senators and these representatives, and they look at me like I'm such a horrible person, I'm like, you're trying to take something from me, from my child, and I'm telling you, I don't care about Susie Q down the street right now. I'm literally talking to you about my kid, and I'm telling you what's happened. Now, I do care about Susie Q down the street, but not in that moment when I'm advocating for my child.
They just want to help you.
Huh?
They just want to help you.
Oh, the government, I know. I know. They just want to help. That's all they're there for.
The most frightening phrase from the government. We're
here to help. So people ask me, why is this happening? So this is happening because of Abbott. And Abbott is a globalist. He is not a Republican. I will debate anybody on that because he is. And he took a $6 million donation. It's the largest donation in the history of Texas from Jeff Yaz. Jeff Yaz created TikTok out of Pennsylvania. Why does this Pennsylvania billionaire care about our state? Texas sets the stage for education. So goes Texas, so goes the nation. If a curriculum vendor fails at the State Board of Education, they look like their dog got ran over twice in front of them. They are devastated. And I have been there and killed some curriculum. And it's like I'm looking at them like, oh, sorry, but your curriculum sucks. They have to go to other countries and try to sell it. They have to go all over the country trying to sell their curriculum. But if it passes in Texas, that's a golden ticket. And so if we fall on this voucher scam, the entire nation's going to go. It's going to be like dominoes. So there is a controversial curriculum. It was HB 1605 called Blue Bonnet, and it passed last year. I was completely against it. Please don't adopt it in your school district.
We're against it.
Awesome. It's trash curriculum. It's experimenting on kids, and they tickled everybody's ear with Bible verses that are in it, but the curriculum doesn't work. They're currently going to be testing on your kids if it works, and the curriculum that they pulled it from was a failure in the state of Texas, and 0 school districts that implemented that curriculum improved their scores. So they took that curriculum and admitted that 70% of that curriculum is bluebonnet. And so
But they renamed.
they renamed it several times, and it was because me and my mom friends would go and rage about it on Twitter, and if you went in and you typed all the different names that they had in, our posts were immediately coming up. But if you put in bluebonnet, you get the poisonous flower, because that's a poisonous curriculum. And so that's what you're going to get pulled up when you look at it. And so Jeff Yaz, go back to him. So Club for Growth is another club that he funds, and so they are currently doing a survey in the state of Texas. And Jeff Yaz is one of their largest donors. It's debatable whether he's number 1 or number 2 largest donor. And then he put $12 million into the state of Texas. So again, why would he do that? Why does he love our kids so much that he wants to help so much by putting all this money in? So he has a group called STOP. STOP, and I don't remember what the S and the O stand for because it doesn't really matter. The T stands for transformational. Who gave them the right to transform your child? When I drop my child off at the door, I may like them the way that they are. I may not. But if anybody's going to transform them, that's going to be me, my husband, our family, maybe our pastor. It's going to be who we decide. And then the last is P, permissionless. So they're advocating, Jeff Yaz is advocating for a permissionless education system, while the state of Texas and our elected officials are saying, parents' rights, parents have the right to decide. And they're letting this billionaire come in because of his money to go for a permissionless education system. So then in that stop, they give out awards, and they have a little competition for who has the best transformational and permissionless education vendors that come along. And so Odyssey was just selected as one of their winners and got $500,000. So I'm in the Capitol and I'm going around, and if you go to the Capitol and you just sit down on a bench, those lobbyists will just come by and they stand there and talk. And if you see people and you go down there enough, you're like, I remember that face. They've been in an education hearing. So I just go stand close to them or act like I'm fixing my sock in my shoe, sit down on a bench, and they'll talk. And so that was Odyssey that won the Jeff Yaz Prize. And there they were in the Capitol. And I was like, that's it. That's one of the CEAOs. So I look up Odyssey, and they are a CEAO for other states, but they want Texas. So why would they want Texas so bad? Because 5% is coming off of every bit of money that's put into this ESA program. So for the first $1 billion, that's $50 million.
We're the golden goose.
Yes, we are the golden goose. And so they're going to get $50 million off of every $1 billion to implement this. Remember, it's just a call center. That's all it is. And they're going to make sure you're using it correctly and spending it on approved vendors and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know how many employees they think they're going to need to do that. That $50 million is absolutely ridiculous. And so, call to action. I've already kind of told you, you got to reach out to your reps. You literally have to make it so uncomfortable for them that they have to be hearing from you. For your rep, it's every single day. If you pick one thing off my note and call them about every single day and aggravate her, she needs to know that you're going to work against her. You're going to find someone to run against her. You're going to walk against her. You're going to donate against her. But if she stands with you, you're going to donate to her. It might be $5 a month. It might be all you can afford. Great. Those small donations, single donations, they really matter to elected officials. You're going to walk for her. You're going to support her. They need to know they're going to have the support back at home because Abbott is going to rage on them. And it is going to be way more brutal than it was last session or last election cycle because Abbott is going to be running. There is a coalition, and so if your club decides, if you guys decide to take up new business tonight to vote to sign on to the Grayson County Conservative Coalition against HB3, I can send you a copy of it, or you can go on Grayson County Conservatives right now. It's pinned there, and you can read it. It's against the bill. And so I have signed on to it. There's hundreds of people that have signed on. Different clubs and Republican groups have signed on to this to signal to our elected officials that we the people don't want this, and we literally don't care what Abbott's going to do. And so, and then vote Abbott out in the 2026 primary. Please get out and walk. If you know somebody that would be a great candidate, ask them to run. Abbott is the whole problem in the state of Texas, 100%. He is ruling our state like a king. He is not a king. He is a governor. And if these elected officials vote for this, knowing that their emails, their texts, their visits that in their office have been the majority against, and they vote for it anyway because of Abbott, they just made him a king and they just sold our state to vendors. And we are no longer a representative form of government. We are owned by donors. My name is Hollie Plemons, and it's IEPLEMONS. It's on the top of my notes. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter or on Facebook, I post everything publicly. I'm pretty spicy on there, so people like to get in and argue, and I love it. And so I argue back. I love the questions, and I've been posting publicly for about 4 years now, and just sharing my opinions on what I think when it comes to education. A lot of Democrats are following me right now, and it's like, hang around. You're probably not going to like me a little bit longer once this issue's over and I move on to something else. But I welcome all the followers. I welcome any questions on my social media, and if anybody has any questions here today, I'm happy to answer them.
Just a quick one.
Yep.
With this stuff going on in Washington over the Department of Education, how do you see that affecting the state of Texas?
Huh? Oh, so he's asking how I think that the Department of Education being defunded in Washington, D.C. is going to trickle down to Texas. So he's not really ending it.
No, it's not. It's reorganizing. That's right.
Back to the way it was in
Yes,
1979.
1979.
Right.
That's right.
So do I think that they're going to get rid of the Department of Education and send money back to the states when Trump is calling for a federal voucher program? No, I don't. I don't see that happening. And when it does, I will be pleasantly surprised and happy to say that I was wrong. But I don't see them doing that and kicking more money back to the state. And if they kick it back to the state, is it going to go into the general revenue where all of our funds go, where they legally have to go, where our recapture goes, where they do not track those funds, where they actually go? So recapture gets taken from districts and it goes into the general fund. Our surplus is in the general fund, so that is from our sales tax. And so when people are like, oh no, I trust the government. Here's a very simple reason not to trust the government. Last session, they got rid of the fact that you guys here, I'm sure, don't have to go get your car inspected. Right, but you know what you still have to pay? The fee. Yeah. They didn't take it away. We have a surplus from overtaxation, and they go around to all the Republican meetings in Tarrant County, and they're like, we got rid of that fee. And I'm like, but you kept the fee. Now our cars aren't going to be inspected. There's going to be more janky cars on the road, but we don't. He drives janky cars. And so there's going to be more of those, more smoking cars on the road, but the state's still going to be collecting our money. So whenever we think about them giving our money back, they don't normally do that. Or they act like they gave you something, but they didn't. And I'm Tarrant County. I still have to get my car inspected. I still have to pay the fee. Absolutely nothing changed for me.
That's another item you never really own is the car.
No, because this is that.
Did you have to pay that?
It's the emergency check, right?
Yeah, they check and make sure that you're
I thought they did.
horn honks. Joe, this would be more of you of all the things they do.
In the urban counties and the adjacent counties of those counties.
Yeah. So most counties in Texas don't have to do it anymore, but you all have to pay the fee. We just still have to go have the inspection, and then we pay the fee as well.
We just say they saved us 15, 20 minutes before that was paid.
Well, you would think Liberty would because we're adjacent to Tarrant County.
Don't make it.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys on that one. It's just something that irritates me, and it's a good point to point out that whenever we're talking about the government and people are saying, oh, I trust this government right now. Really? They didn't give you your $7 back. $7. They decided not to give it back to you, and you trust them. And to say to trust future governments, no. Like our future governments only get worse and worse and worse, so we have to stop them before they get the camel's nose underneath the tent.
You know, Ms. Plemons, I appreciate what you said about curriculum, and it is very, very expensive. As you know, because you've been there up to state building. They require it ever so often, every several years, an adoption of a new curriculum. And because we haven't gotten them from 2019, you see that there are many families taking advantage of the on it, not because they want to, but because
It was by design they were forced to.
they only give us the money if you choose that.
Yes, so there's a carrot that was dangled in there to take Bluebonnet.
And we
And
don't
so,
have money otherwise
Right.
to spend on.
and they did that on purpose.
I
So
know.
the destruction
So I want you
of
to know-
public schools
Yes. When
was
you-
done on purpose. At the local level, there's
Absolutely.
problems, and then there's problems at the state level.
Absolutely.
And so I blame everybody. Every single person in this room, you're to blame. I'm to blame. If you don't go to your school board meetings, you're to blame. I didn't go to my school board meetings. I didn't know. I was supposed to go. I don't have kids in the school district during that time. Why would I go to a school board meeting? I didn't even know that you would go. Just sitting there and listening to what they say, and then when you start going, what did they just say? And your face starts making questions, the board looks at you. They notice. You got a board member back there. They probably are looking at Oh, okay, two back there. You probably have a squeaky wheel that comes to your school board meetings. At least I hope you do. And only when you hold them on. So they will look at you and be like, okay, they're wondering things. So my school board absolutely hates my guts, and things are changing. They are changing quite a bit, because while they do everything that's wrong every single time they have an opportunity to make the right choice, they make the wrong choice in Fort Worth ISD, which is why we're the worst ranked large ISD in the state of Texas. And we have 0% of our 7th graders mastering math, 0%. And so our school district is really struggling. If you come up to Tarrant County and you go and you check out at the grocery store or Target where some kids are working, they don't know how to make your change. And their social skills are extremely lacking. They can't look at you in the eyes. This is all stemming from our public school. I think that and cell phones, but you know what they have in the schools? A device. And so in Fort Worth ISD, there's a child in the room, so I'm not going to say it, a naughty site that has hub at the end of it that's now blocked in the state of Texas. That particular site was not blocked on my child's devices. And so my child got a device in 6th grade, his first year in public school, and that's where he watched one of those videos in class because one of the other kids pulled it up. And so if we're so concerned about the cell phones, and there is a bill by Fairley and by Troxclair to get rid of cell phones, I'm against that bill completely, because it's not the government's job. We should let local do local, and parents should be in charge of that cell phone. And I want teachers in the classroom being backed up by their admins and by their school board to say, put your phone away, put it in your backpack. If they're on it, that's the teacher's job to manage that classroom. The government doesn't need to come in and say no phones. So the plan is in this bill, and I just testified against it on Tuesday, is for them to collect them and then go put them up. Okay, so then they talk about the discipline bill and the kids that are tearing up the classrooms, 4 and 5-year-olds tearing up the classrooms. What about if they go get those cell phones and they tear them up? Who's replacing that? We are, taxpayers. It's going to come out of the school budget to replace those phones. Are they going to take their watches off and then have to put them back on, off and on their Apple Watches? In doing that, there's a new vendor called Yonder Pouches, and they're very expensive for the teachers to collect everybody's cell phones. So every bill is a vendor bill. It's why it's called a bill. It's because it's a bill for us to pay, and then they give us the fiscal note to say how much this is going to cost. And on the very last page of my note is the fiscal analysis. This is the one that gets most people, and nobody argues with me about it being wrong, because I literally just pulled the numbers straight from the fiscal note, and then I just did math on it, because I can do math. And yeah, so No, I went to school in the 90s, and so I didn't have to do Common Core math, so I can actually do math. And I did the analysis on it, and it's their numbers. And so they say, oh, we don't like the Legislative Budget Board and their numbers. They're Soros funded, and I was like, oh my gosh, has anybody told the Republicans that the Legislative Budget Board is getting bribes from Soros They probably should, and then they're done with that argument. And then they came back and said, well, they're all liberals in Legislative Budget Board. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's completely controlled by Republicans. So are the Republicans aware of that? And then they're done with that on the fiscal note. I think that the fiscal note's spot on. The only thing that I would disagree on is I don't believe that 50% of homeschoolers are going to take these coupons. But it helps my numbers, so I go with it. And it's the documents that the government has. So that's what I'm going to use.
Talking about the coupons, if anybody here knows of a private school in Liberty County, raise your hand.
We're just talking about that.
What private school?
It's Safe Harbor in Cleveland.
Okay, there is a private school in Liberty.
Yes.
Okay, see that nobody knows that it's there, but nobody's going to drive an hour one way. You know,
Well,
you do 45
we're
minutes,
not
but I
so bad in
mean,
Oh, nobody else does that.
yeah, I mean, it's just, but the people in Liberty County are not going to be grossly impacted by this one way or the other.
And well, except for you have to pay for it.
Yeah, except,
So everybody has to pay for it.
But when you stop and think of the mindset, well, I don't have one in my county, I'm not going to worry about it, I'm not even going to apply for it, it's not my problem.
Yeah.
And then we hear somebody that says, oh, yes, it is your problem.
So if it's being funded from the surplus, that's all of our dollars that are not coming back to us. And so the first year it's $1 billion out of the surplus, and then the next year it's every single person that has gotten an ESA and their siblings. And so it's going to go through the criteria of everybody that we funded the year before, and then any new siblings that have come about, you know, that has aged into the system, they will get one, and then everybody on the wait list in the second biennium. That's going to bankrupt our state, or they're going to raise our taxes, and that's what they're going to do. So this is why I call it a new tax, and they get very upset when I say that, and they say that I'm not telling the truth. Yes, I am. I'm looking 2 years in the future, and they say, well, what if we don't like the program? We'll just end it. And I'm like, when have you ever done that?
Yeah.
When have you ever done that?
When did they ever stop the bridge and road tax? I mean, wasn't that big of a deal back then. Oh, we'll only be here for a couple of years till we get all the roads and bridges fixed. That was 45 years ago.
And we as a parent, can we request the curriculum that's going to be used today, your copy of it?
Used where?
In
Within
schools.
which school?
Well, every school has if it's federally funded.
You mean public schools?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
vendor,
you can go to them right now.
The vendor said, okay, we sold the program. Can the parents say, look, I want to know what this school year's curriculum
Yes.
are, so I can evaluate it, so I can make a decision that I'm not going to let them go through that.
You got to go to the
Yes.
school board meeting to find out what the
No, you just go to your school
And you can
administration
request the whole
office.
year's curriculum.
You can.
Specific to your student.
You can, and you do not have to do an open records request.
What
No. You're not going to get a paper copy. They're not going to give you a paper copy. They're going to take you into a room, and you can review the curriculum. And so you do not have to do an open records request. And you can just go right in. You can sit down and review the curriculum. They don't let you take nope. Can't take pictures, but you can take notes. You can do talk to text.
Wait a minute. Let me see if I got this straight. This sounds like Obamacare that was passed in the middle of the night, 2,100 pages, and you can see what's in it after we pass it.
Well, this bill is Obamacare, but you're talking about curriculum.
I'm talking about curriculum.
That's already the law.
You can go and look at it.
Well, because it's copyrighted.
Can I bring a person with a photographic memory?
Sure. Absolutely, you can.
Look through it and come home.
But here's the thing. So when you start reviewing curriculum, it's a lot of pages. And there's a lot of curriculum that is actually online for you to review. Bluebonnet is online.
How can they copyright what they're going to feed your kids without you knowing it?
Well, so you can't take it to your house, but you can ask your kid for their textbooks.
Who's paying for it?
We are paying for it. We are paying for it. Yeah, I mean, you can look at tons of curriculum that is online.
When TEA says to us it's time to adopt new math curriculum or it's time to adopt
Yes.
new reading or
Instructional
science or
materials.
high
You can
quality
go.
instructional materials. They also give us a list and say, you may pick curriculum from this list.
For funding.
Yes.
You can do other curriculum not on the list, but you're not going to get funding for it.
No, you have to choose choose from the high-quality list. We now have a high-quality HQ list.
Well, I don't like the high-quality instructional materials. I don't like OER.
What's crazy is when you choose, like we had, when I first started in Tarkington, the curriculum that we had in reading, it was on the HQ list.
Yeah.
It fell off. So we have to buy new curriculum, and it has to be something on the list.
To use certain dollars for it?
No, certain things on there will give us more money. Bluebonnet, maximum dollars.
So South Lake Carroll uses a curriculum that's not approved by the State Board of Education. And South Lake Carroll is a very wealthy school district in my area, and they normally win the titles for football.
Yep.
They spend $30,000 a kid. They are funded 98 or 99% by local property taxes, so it's those parents actually paying for it. Highland Park, it's South Lake Carroll and Highland Park's 198 and 199, and both of them are very expensive districts, and both of them spend $30,000 a kid. And Highland Park is the very first school district in the state of Texas that allowed the CCP, the Communist China Party, into their school. And Highland Park is like the old money of Dallas. It's fancy pants.
And they are funded completely. They're not dependent on the state.
They get a little bit of money from the state.
Less than 20%. We
Oh.
are 80% from
Oh, I know. I know. That's what I said. 98 or 99%.
We lose all that funding.
Yes.
We didn't choose them.
Yes. Yes, but you can. You're just not going to get the funding for it. So, I know.
Courtney had a question. Courtney, what was your
Oh, yeah,
question?
I had just had a comment for my fellow Liberty County residents that our new, a reminder that our new representative, as she's talking about, our old representative was actually anti-voucher. Our new one was bought and paid for by Greg Abbott. And so she probably needs a little bit of a reminder.
She does need a
how y'all
reminder.
feel.
She does, and she is a co-sponsor.
She was really bought
And there are several co-sponsors that are feeling the heat and are getting ready to crumble. But if every single one of these co-sponsors votes for it, it's a done deal.
How can you help your child fill in the gaps that are lacking in education if you can't anticipate the curriculum that's going to be taught? Because
You'd have to go talk to Greg Abbott about that.
When I went to school, I learned reading, writing, and arithmetic. And what I've seen, glimpses of what's going on in our school system today, I don't know what that is. I can't help it because the logic is so out there. I'm trying to figure out, no wonder they can't count change. No wonder they can't add, subtract, multiply.
So they are constantly changing the curriculum, and that it's every 10 years our TEKS come up for a review, and so they do that. Our TEKS is done by our State Board of Education, and so all of that stuff is constantly changing, and so our schools get hit quite a bit. I mean, they get lots of punches from the state. And it's a very great way to run a campaign is I'm going to save the children, or I'm going to fix the public schools, and all the different taglines that you've heard them say. And none of them actually get down there and do anything except for siphon more of our dollars away from our schools, away from our children, away from our teachers, and into vendors' pockets.
And you wonder why the parents are upset when kids come out and can't read, write, and read.
Right, and the Bluebonnet curriculum that we just talked about that's quote-unquote free, that was $2.44 billion that we all paid for. And me and my mom friends waged an absolute war against that bill. And so we're getting called scorched earth on this one. I thought we were scorched earth on this one. We're scorching everything on this one. Like, we're not backing down. And the hearing, not this Tuesday, but the Tuesday before, it started at 8 a.m. in the morning, and it finished the next day at 6:30 in the morning. And the number of people that were against it was the major majority. And then the online comments is 2,995 pages of online comments that were submitted. It's something that the Capitol has never seen before, which is why I say we have to be so loud to stop this. And we're being so loud, it's something the Capitol's never seen before, but they're also afraid of Abbott, and Abbott's going to turn our state blue over this because they're acting like all of our teachers are raging liberals, No, they're not. Not in the rural areas. They are Republican voters, and they are so pissed. And so they are not going to vote for him, and this is really dangerous. I'm very afraid for what's going to happen with Republican turnout if this doesn't stop.
I've got one more thing real quick before we go to you. Please, before you leave, because this is disbanding quickly, please give me your email so I can contact you so you can know when more meetings like this come up. Sarah, last word.
Can I get an extra copy to bring to?
You got it. She's got a stack.
Can I motion to adjourn?
We got a motion to adjourn.
I don't have a question, but I got one thing to say. I really appreciate the work.
All right, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you guys for coming.
Where's Courtney make that?